When Michael Jordan walked into a grocery store on a rainy Tuesday evening, he had no idea his life was about to change forever. He was just there to buy some chicken and vegetables for dinner. Nothing special, nothing fancy, just a normal trip to the store. But then he saw her. A young mother stood at the checkout counter, crying. Her hands were shaking as she counted crumpled dollar bills and loose coins. Her two small children stood beside her, holding worn teddy bears, watching their mom with worried eyes. She was $47 short for groceries. The cashier looked impatient. Other shoppers stared. And this mother had to make an impossible choice. Which food would her children go without this week? Michael didn't think. He just stepped forward and said, "I've got this." He pulled out his wallet and paid for her groceries. It seemed like a simple act of kindness, just helping someone who needed help. No big deal, right? But then something strange happened, something Michael never expected. The woman looked up at him, and when she realized who he was, she didn't smile. She didn't say thank you. Instead, she started crying even harder. Her whole body shook. She could barely stand up. Michael was confused. Why was she crying like this? This wasn't normal gratitude. This was something deeper, something he didn't understand. "You don't understand what you've just done," she sobbed. "This isn't just about groceries." Before Michael could ask what she meant, her little daughter started coughing, a deep, scary cough that sounded really bad. The mother's face went pale. She quickly loaded her children into her rusty old car and drove away into the rain. Michael stood there in the parking lot, soaked and confused, with one question burning in his mind. What had just happened? He didn't know it yet, but that woman's husband had written him a letter years ago. A letter Michael never saw. A letter that predicted this exact moment would happen. He didn't know that this wasn't a coincidence, that this mother's husband had dreamed about Michael helping his wife before he died. He didn't know that 20 years earlier, he had saved this woman's husband's life with just a few words spoken to an angry teenager at a community center. And he definitely didn't know that this one moment in a grocery store would create a movement that would save thousands of families and prove that kindness never dies. What happened next is one of the most incredible true stories you'll ever hear. A story about prophecy, impossible timing, and how one conversation can change everything, even 20 years later. Stay with me through this whole video, because what Michael discovered about this crying mother and her family will absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you need to hear how this story ends. The rain hammered against the windows of Save Mart grocery store like tiny fists demanding attention. It was Tuesday evening and the store was quieter than usual. Most people had rushed home before the storm hit Charlotte, but a few shoppers wandered the aisles, their carts squeaking against the worn linoleum floor. Michael Jordan pulled his hood lower over his face and adjusted his sunglasses. Even in jeans and a plain gray hoodie, he knew someone might recognize him. But tonight, he just wanted to be normal. He wanted to pick up some chicken, vegetables, and pasta for a quiet dinner at home without cameras or autograph requests. He pushed his cart past the produce section, selecting tomatoes and onions with care. The simple act of choosing his own groceries felt like a small victory against the constant chaos of fame. For just these few minutes, he was simply a man buying food. That's when he heard the voice, desperate and breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me count again." Michael looked toward checkout lane 3. A young woman stood there, her hands shaking as she dumped the contents of her purse onto the counter. Coins scattered and rolled across the surface. Crumpled dollar bills lay in a messy pile. Her face was red, her eyes filled with tears she was fighting to hold back. Two children stood beside her. A boy, maybe 7 years old, clutched a worn teddy bear to his chest. His eyes were wide and worried as he watched his mother. Next to him, a smaller girl, perhaps 4, held her own teddy bear and tugged at her mother's rain-soaked coat. "Mommy, why can't we take the food home?" the little girl asked, her voice innocent and confused. The woman Alina, Michael would later learn, bit her lip hard. "We will, baby, just give Mommy a minute." The cashier, a teenager with bored eyes and purple hair, sighed loudly. "Ma'am, you're still $47 short. I need you to either put items back or find another way to pay." Michael watched as Alina looked down at her groceries. Milk, bread, eggs, chicken breasts, apples, peanut butter. These weren't luxuries. These were basics, necessities, the things a family needed to survive. Alina's hands trembled as she reached for the milk. "Okay, take out the milk and the chicken," her voice cracked. We can make do with eggs and peanut butter this week. The boy looked up at his mother. But Mommy, Sophia needs milk, the doctor said. I know what the doctor said, Matteo, Alina whispered, tears now streaming freely down her face. But we can't. I can't. She couldn't finish the sentence. Her shoulders shook as she tried to hold herself together in front of her children. The little girl, Sophia, started to cry too, not understanding what was happening but feeling her mother's pain. Michael felt something twist in his chest. He'd seen poverty before. He donated millions to causes, written checks to foundations, supported communities. But standing 10 feet away from a mother who couldn't afford milk for her sick daughter hit differently. This wasn't a statistic. This was real, happening right in front of him. He didn't think, he just moved. I've got this, Michael said quietly, stepping forward with his wallet already in his hand. Alina looked up startled. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. For a moment she didn't seem to recognize him. She just saw a stranger offering help. Then her gaze focused and her eyes went wide with shock. I can't, she stammered. I can't accept. Please, Michael said gently, pulling out his credit card. Let me help. The cashier's mouth dropped open. She recognized him instantly. Her hand froze over the register as she stared. Alina shook her head, pride warring with desperation on her face. You don't understand. I'm not. I've always worked. I've always provided for my children. I'm not a charity case. I know you're not, Michael said softly. He turned to the cashier. Ring up her groceries with mine, please. Mr. Jordan, the cashier began, her voice awed. Just the groceries, please, Michael said firmly but kindly. Alina stood frozen, tears pouring down her face now without restraint. But these tears were different. They weren't just tears of embarrassment or frustration anymore. These were tears of something deeper, something Michael couldn't quite identify. Her whole body began to shake, and she covered her mouth with her hand as a sob escaped. The reaction confused Michael. He'd expected relief, maybe gratitude, but this was something else entirely, something raw and overwhelming that seemed to go far beyond the simple act of paying for groceries. Ma'am, are you okay? The cashier asked, concerned. Alina couldn't answer. She just shook her head, crying harder, holding onto the shopping cart to keep herself upright. Matteo wrapped his arms around his mother's waist. Mommy, don't cry. The nice man is helping us. But Alina couldn't stop. Michael stepped closer, worried now. Hey, it's okay, really. Everyone needs help sometimes. You don't understand, Alina managed to gasp between sobs. You don't understand what you've just done. This isn't just about groceries. Before Michael could ask what she meant, Sophia started coughing, a deep, rattling cough that sounded wet and painful. The sound filled the checkout lane, harsh and wrong coming from such a small child. Alina's face went pale. She immediately knelt down, checking her daughter's forehead, looking into her eyes with a mother's practiced concern. Baby, are you okay? Did you take your medicine today? Sophia nodded but coughed again, her small body shaking with the effort. Michael's concern deepened. That cough didn't sound like a simple cold. That sounded serious. The cashier finished ringing up the groceries, $18,347 total. Michael handed over his card without hesitation. As the receipt printed, other shoppers in nearby lanes began to notice what was happening. Phones appeared, cameras pointing their way. Michael helped Alina load her groceries into her cart, ignoring the attention. He wanted to ask about Sophia's cough, wanted to understand what Alina had meant about this being more than groceries, but the moment felt too fragile, too public. They walked toward the exit together, rain still pounding against the doors. In the parking lot, Michael saw Alina's car, a rusty 1998 Honda Civic with a missing hubcap and a crack across the windshield. The kind of car that barely held together, running on prayers and desperation. As they reached the car, Alina turned to Michael. Her tears had slowed, but her eyes held something intense, something haunted. She opened her mouth to speak, to explain, to tell him something important. But Sophia coughed again, harder this time, and Alina's face shifted from emotional to terrified. I need to get her home, she said urgently, fumbling with her keys. Wait, Michael said. You said this wasn't just about groceries. What did you mean? Alina looked at him, and in her eyes, Michael saw loss and pain and something else. Something that looked almost like recognition, like she'd been expecting him. You don't know what you've done, she whispered. You don't know. But she didn't finish. She quickly loaded Matteo and Sophia into the car, secured their seatbelts, and climbed into the driver's seat. The old Honda's engine coughed almost as badly as Sophia before finally turning over. Michael stood in the rain, watching the taillights disappear into the storm, questions flooding his mind. Something about Alina's tears, about her words, about the whole encounter felt significant in a way he couldn't explain. He didn't know it yet, but that moment at the grocery store, that simple act of paying for food, had just connected him to a story that began 20 years earlier, a story involving a man he'd met only once, a story about saved lives and kept promises, and the mysterious ways the universe brings people together at exactly the right moment. All Michael knew as he stood there in the rain was that he'd just witnessed something more than gratitude. He'd seen something break open in Alina's soul, something that suggested their meeting wasn't random at all, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to understand why. Michael stood in the rain for another full minute, water soaking through his hoodie, watching the space where Alina's car had disappeared. Around him, the parking lot was nearly empty except for a few scattered vehicles and the distant sound of shopping carts rattling in their corral. He shook his head, trying to clear the strange feeling that had settled over him. It was just groceries, just helping someone in need. He'd done it before countless times, in fact. So why did this feel different? By the time Michael loaded his own groceries into his Range Rover and drove home, the rain had turned into a full storm. Lightning cracked across the Charlotte sky, illuminating the city in brief, brilliant flashes, but Michael barely noticed. His mind kept replaying Alina's face, her tears, her words. "You don't understand what you've just done." What had he done exactly? Paid for food. That was it, nothing extraordinary, nothing that should have caused that kind of emotional breakdown, unless there was more to the story. His house was dark when he arrived, quiet except for the storm outside. His wife Yvette had texted earlier to say she was staying late at her sister's place. Michael was alone with his thoughts, and that wasn't always a good thing. He put away the groceries mechanically, his movements automatic. Chicken in the fridge, pasta in the pantry, vegetables in the crisper. But his mind was miles away, back in that grocery store, watching a mother choose between milk and chicken, watching her children's confused faces, hearing that terrible cough from the little girl. Sophia, that was her name. He'd heard the boy Mateo say it. Michael walked to his study, a room lined with awards and photographs from his basketball career. Trophies gleamed in the dim light. Championship rings sat in velvet cases. Pictures showed him in his prime, soaring through the air, defying gravity, being the legend everyone expected him to be. But tonight, none of that felt important. He sat in his leather chair and stared out the window at the rain. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and Michael found himself thinking about his own mother, Dolores. She'd worked so hard when he was young, cleaning houses, doing whatever it took to feed 5 children. His father, James, had worked at an electric plant and later managed a store, but money had still been tight. Michael remembered being 10 years old, watching his mother count coins at the kitchen table, trying to stretch dollars that didn't want to stretch. He remembered the look on her face, not quite desperation, but close. The look of someone who refused to fail their children but wasn't sure how to keep that promise. Alina had worn that same look tonight. The memory made Michael's chest tight. His mother had sacrificed everything for her children, and they'd made it. He'd made it. He'd become one of the greatest basketball players in history, earned millions, lived a life his 10-year-old self couldn't have imagined. But what about the Alinas of the world? The mothers who worked just as hard but never caught a break. The families where one medical emergency, one job loss, one stroke of bad luck meant choosing between milk and chicken. Michael pulled out his phone and scrolled through the photos he'd taken over the past few weeks. He stopped on one from a charity event his foundation had hosted. Dozens of smiling children, families receiving support, everyone grateful and happy. But tonight felt different from those organized events. Tonight had been raw and real and unexpected. Tonight had been life happening, not a planned photo opportunity or tax-deductible donation. The clock on his desk read 9:47 p.m. Michael wondered if Alina and her children were home yet, if Sophia's cough had gotten worse, if they were eating the groceries he'd paid for, or if Alina's pride had kept her from using them. That thought bothered him more than he wanted to admit. What if she returned the groceries out of stubbornness? What if her pride mattered more than her children's hunger? No. He'd seen her face when Sophia coughed. Whatever pride Alina had, her children's welfare came first. She would use the groceries. She had to. Michael's phone buzzed. A text from Yvette, still at Linda's. Storm is bad, staying the night, love you. He texted back, stay safe, love you too. Another boom of thunder shook the house. Michael got up and walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water he didn't really want, and stood at the counter thinking. That cough, that terrible, rattling cough from Sophia, that wasn't just a cold. Michael had heard enough sick kids in hospitals during charity visits to know the difference between a simple cold and something serious. That child had something wrong with her lungs, something that needed medical attention. And if Alina couldn't afford $47 for groceries, she definitely couldn't afford proper medical care. The thought made Michael angry, not at Alina, but at a system that let children suffer because their parents couldn't pay. He donated millions to medical research, to children's hospitals, to healthcare initiatives, but clearly it wasn't enough. It would never be enough as long as mothers stood in checkout lines, removing milk from their carts because they couldn't afford both milk and medicine. Michael walked back to his study and sat down at his computer. He opened his email and began typing a message to his foundation director. Marcus, I need you to look into something for me. Tonight I helped a woman at Save Mart on Providence Road. Young mother, 2 kids, couldn't afford her groceries. I need to know if there's a way to. He stopped typing and deleted the message. That wasn't right. He couldn't track down every person he helped. That would be invasive, weird, crossing boundaries. But he couldn't stop thinking about Sophia's cough, about Alina's tears, about Mateo's worried face. Michael closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, frustrated with himself. When had he become the kind of person who couldn't let go of one encounter? He helped people every day through his foundation. This shouldn't feel different, but it did. Around midnight, Yvette called. Hey honey, you still up? Yeah, Michael said, his voice tired. Can't sleep. What's wrong? You sound off. Michael hesitated, then told her about the grocery store. He described Alina, the children, the groceries, the breakdown, the mysterious words about it being more than just food, the cough. Yvette listened without interrupting, the way she always did when Michael needed to process something. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. You helped her, Yvette finally said. That's what matters. Sometimes people cry when they're overwhelmed by kindness, especially if they've been struggling alone for a long time. You probably reminded her that good people still exist. Maybe, Michael said, but he didn't sound convinced. What else could it be? Yvette asked gently. I don't know, something about her reaction felt personal, like she knew me. Not as Michael Jordan, the basketball player, but something else. You're probably reading too much into it, baby. You did a good thing. Let it be a good thing. Michael nodded, even though Yvette couldn't see him. You're right, I'm overthinking it. They talked for a few more minutes before saying goodnight. Michael finally headed to bed around 1 in the morning, exhausted but still unable to quiet his mind. He dreamed that night, strange, fragmented dreams. In them he was back at the grocery store, but everything was different. Alina kept trying to tell him something important, but every time she opened her mouth, no sound came out. Sophia coughed, and the sound echoed through the store like thunder. Mateo held up his teddy bear, and on its chest was a number, 23, Michael's number. He woke at 3:17 a.m., his heart pounding. The storm had passed, leaving the night quiet and still, but Michael's mind was anything but quiet. He got out of bed, walked back to his study, and sat in the darkness, staring at nothing. You don't understand what you've just done, Alina had said, and she was right. He didn't understand. But suddenly, sitting there in the dark, Michael Jordan, a man who'd faced impossible odds on basketball courts around the world, who'd never backed down from a challenge, made a decision. He needed to find Alina, not to intrude or to make her uncomfortable, but to understand. Something had happened tonight that went beyond a simple act of charity, and every instinct Michael had told him this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Morning came too quickly. Michael had managed maybe 3 hours of sleep before the sun began filtering through his bedroom curtains. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the birds outside and the distant sound of traffic beginning its daily rhythm. Yvette arrived home around 8, finding Michael in the kitchen making coffee. She kissed his cheek and immediately noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. You didn't sleep, she said. It wasn't a question. Not much, Michael admitted, pouring them both coffee. Couldn't stop thinking. Yvette settled onto a bar stool, her face concerned. About the woman from the grocery store. Michael nodded. He felt foolish admitting how much the encounter had affected him, but Yvette knew him too well to hide it. Something's not sitting right with me. Her reaction. It was too intense for what happened. Maybe she was just at her breaking point, Yvette suggested gently. You know how it is when you're barely holding on, and then one small kindness just breaks the dam. Maybe you were her breaking point. Maybe, Michael said, but the word came out uncertain. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their coffee. Outside, the morning was beautiful. The storm had cleared the air, leaving everything fresh and clean. But inside, Michael felt clouded, unsettled. What are you going to do? Yvette finally asked. Michael set down his coffee cup. I want to find her, make sure she and her kids are okay. Yvette's eyebrows rose. Michael. I know how it sounds, he said quickly. But that little girl's cough, it wasn't normal, Yvette. That child is sick, maybe seriously sick. And if her mother can't afford groceries, she definitely can't afford medical treatment. You can't save everyone, Yvette said softly. It wasn't criticism, just truth spoken with love. I know that. Michael ran his hand over his face, feeling the stubble there. I'm not trying to save everyone, but this one. I don't know, it feels important, like I'm supposed to do something. Yvette studied her husband's face. After years of marriage, she recognized that look, determination mixed with something deeper, something almost spiritual. Michael didn't get this way often, but when he did, arguing was pointless. Okay, she said. What's your plan? Michael had been thinking about this since 3 in the morning. I'll call Marcus at the foundation. Have him reach out to the store, see if they can provide any information, payment records, anything that might help us locate her. Discreetly. And if you find her, I just want to make sure they're okay, that's all. Yvette reached across the counter and took his hand. Your heart is one of the reasons I love you, but be careful, okay? People value their privacy, especially people who are struggling. Make sure you're helping, not intruding. I will, Michael promised. After Yvette went upstairs to shower and change, Michael retreated to his study. He picked up his phone and called Marcus Thompson, the director of his charitable foundation. Marcus had been with him for 8 years, a steady presence who understood both Michael's desire to help and the need for discretion. MJ, good morning, Marcus answered on the second ring. What's going on? Michael explained the situation, the grocery store, the mother and children, his concern about the sick child. He kept it factual, professional, but Marcus heard the emotion underneath. You want us to track her down, Marcus said when Michael finished. Just find out if she's okay, if she needs medical help for her daughter, if there's something more we can do. Marcus was quiet for a moment. You know we have to be careful with this kind of thing. Privacy laws, boundaries. We can't just investigate people. I know. I'm not asking you to investigate. I'm asking you to help. There's a difference. Is there? Marcus asked, not unkindly. Michael sighed. Marcus, I saw this woman's face. I heard that child cough. Something is seriously wrong, and I can't just walk away pretending I didn't see it. Another pause, then, okay, give me what information you have. I'll reach out to the store manager, see what I can find out. But MJ, if this woman wants to be left alone, we have to respect that. Agreed, Michael said. He provided the details, the store location, the approximate time, the description of Alina and her children, the amount of the grocery bill. It wasn't much, but Marcus was resourceful. I'll call you when I know something, Marcus said before hanging up. Michael set down his phone and stared out his study window. The morning sun was climbing higher, painting everything in golden light. It was the kind of day that usually made him feel energized, ready to tackle whatever came next. But today he just felt restless. He thought again about his mother, about all the times she'd struggled to provide. He remembered being 12, coming home from school to find her crying at the kitchen table, bills spread out in front of her. She'd wiped her tears quickly when she heard him, forced a smile, told him everything was fine. But he'd known it wasn't fine. He'd known his mother was drowning in worry, in the weight of keeping her family afloat. That's what he'd seen in Alina's face, that same weight, that same drowning feeling. And something else, something he couldn't quite name. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. On it. Will take a day or two. Michael texted back, thanks. A day or two felt like forever, but there was nothing else he could do. He couldn't exactly return to the grocery store and stake it out, hoping Alina would come back. That would be creepy, invasive, exactly what Yvette had warned him about. So he waited. The rest of Wednesday passed slowly. Michael went to the gym, tried to focus on his workout, but found himself distracted. He had lunch with some business associates, smiled and nodded through conversation he barely heard. He returned home that evening feeling frustrated and useless. Thursday was worse. Every time his phone rang, he jumped, hoping it was Marcus with news. But the calls were all routine business managers, foundation staff, friends checking in. Nothing about Alina. By Thursday evening, Michael was pacing his study like a caged animal. Yvette watched him with patient concern but didn't say anything. She knew he had to work through this in his own way. Friday morning, 2 days after the grocery store encounter, Marcus finally called. "I found her," he said without preamble. Michael's heart jumped. "And?" "Her name is Alina Martinez. She's 32 years old, works as a housekeeper at the Grandview Hotel downtown. Her son is Mateo, 7 years old. Her daughter is Sophia, 4. "What about Sophia's health?" Michael asked urgently. Marcus's voice got quieter. "That's the hard part, MJ. Sophia has a chronic respiratory condition. She needs daily medication, monthly treatments. The medical bills are," he paused, "they're overwhelming." Michael closed his eyes. How overwhelming? "Alina is about $60,000 in medical debt. She's been making minimum payments, but she's drowning. And here's something else you need to know." "What?" "Alina's husband died 8 months ago, construction accident. He had no life insurance. That's when everything fell apart for the family." The words hit Michael like a physical blow. A widow, a sick child, crushing debt. No wonder Alina had broken down over $47. That wasn't about groceries. That was about being at the absolute end of her rope, about being one disaster away from complete collapse. "There's more," Marcus said, his voice careful now. "Something I think you need to see in person. Can you come to the office?" When, Michael asked. Now would be good. Michael grabbed his keys. "I'm on my way." As he drove toward the foundation offices, Michael's mind raced. Alina's situation was worse than he'd imagined. But Marcus had said there was more, something he needed to see in person. What else could there possibly be? He was about to find out. The foundation offices were located in a modern building in uptown Charlotte, all glass and steel reflecting the midday sun. Michael parked in his reserved spot and took the private elevator to the 3rd floor, his mind spinning with questions. Marcus was waiting in his office, a folder open on his desk. He stood when Michael entered, his expression serious. "That was fast," Marcus said. "You said it was important." Michael sat down across from him. "What did you find?" Marcus pushed the folder across the desk. "I did what you asked, contacted the store, got payment information, tracked down Alina Martinez. The basic facts are what I told you on the phone. Widow, 2 kids, medical debt, barely surviving." "But," Michael prompted, hearing the unspoken word. "But when I was gathering information about the family, I found something in our own database." Marcus tapped the folder. 3 years ago, we received a letter. It was addressed to you personally, but like most of the thousands of letters we get, it was processed by staff." Michael leaned forward. "A letter from Alina?" "No, from her husband, Carlos." Marcus opened the folder and pulled out a photocopy of a handwritten letter. "This arrived in February, 3 years ago. Carlos Martinez wrote to tell you a story." Michael took the letter, his hands suddenly unsteady. The handwriting was neat, careful, the words of someone who wanted to get it right. "Dear Mr. Jordan," the letter began. "You don't know me, but you saved my life." Michael's eyes moved quickly over the words, his heart beating faster with each line. Carlos wrote about being 15 years old, angry and lost after his brother's murder. He wrote about planning revenge, about carrying a knife, about being ready to throw away his future. And then he wrote about a community center, about an unannounced visit from Michael Jordan, about words spoken to troubled kids that pulled him back from the edge. "I was going to ruin my life that day," Carlos had written. "But you talked about your own father's death, about choosing a different path. Something in your words reached me when nothing else could. You saved me, Mr. Jordan. You gave me a future." The letter continued, describing how Carlos had turned his life around, finished school, learned a trade, stayed away from gangs. And then it described meeting Alina, falling in love, building a life together. 2 weeks ago, my son was born, Carlos wrote. We named him Mateo. It means gift from God. And that's what he is. But Mr. Jordan, Mateo wouldn't exist without you. My wife wouldn't exist in my life without you. This whole beautiful future I have. It all started the day you spoke at that community center 20 years ago. Michael's vision blurred. He blinked hard, continuing to read. I'm writing because I want you to know that your words mattered. You probably spoke to hundreds of kids that day and forgot about it immediately. But for me, it was everything. You saved more than just my life. You saved my family's life, a family that wouldn't exist if you hadn't shown up that day. The letter ended with simple gratitude, no requests for money or favors, just a man wanting to say thank you for a second chance. Michael looked up at Marcus, his throat tight. I never saw this letter. I know, I checked our records. It was filed with thousands of others, logged into our database with a form response. Marcus looked uncomfortable. MJ, we get so many letters. Most are wonderful, but we can't respond personally to all of them. Staff sent a generic thank you note to the address Carlos provided. What address? Michael asked. Marcus pulled out another sheet. That's the problem. The address was wrong. Carlos had moved between writing the letter and mailing it. Our response came back as undeliverable. By the time someone noticed, it was already filed away. These things happen. Michael stared at the letter, reading it again. Carlos Martinez, the man who died 8 months ago, leaving behind Alina and 2 children. The man whose wife Michael had helped in a grocery store, not knowing any of this history. When did Carlos die? Michael asked quietly. Marcus checked his notes. August 15th last year. He was working on a construction site, scaffolding collapse. He died instantly. Michael did the math. If Mateo was born 3 years ago when Carlos wrote the letter, he'd be about 7 now, the same age as the boy in the grocery store. Marcus, what was Carlos wearing when he died? Marcus looked confused by the question. What? His clothes, what was he wearing? Marcus flipped through more papers in the folder. I have the accident report here. Standard construction gear, hard hat, work boots. He paused. And a Chicago Bulls jersey, number 23. The room seemed to tilt. Michael gripped the edge of the desk. He was wearing my jersey, Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. Apparently he wore it under his work clothes a lot, Marcus said softly. His coworkers mentioned it in their statements, said it was his lucky jersey, that he never went to a big job without it. Michael stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, Charlotte stretched out beneath him, a city full of millions of stories, millions of connections he'd never know about. But this one had found him anyway. That's why Alina broke down, Michael said, talking more to himself than to Marcus. It wasn't just about groceries, somehow seeing me there. There's one more thing, Marcus interrupted gently. The medical bills I mentioned, they're not just for Sophia. Michael turned. What do you mean? Carlos had a heart condition, genetic, untreatable. The bills show he was diagnosed a few months before he died. He knew he didn't have long. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture that made Michael's chest ache. Carlos had known he was dying. He'd worked extra hours, tried to save money, tried to set up his family for a future without him. And then he died suddenly in an accident before any of his plans could fully form, before he could secure his family's future, before he could do anything except leave behind a wife, 2 children, and a mountain of debt. Alina doesn't know about this letter, does she? Michael asked. I don't think so. There's no indication Carlos ever told her he'd written to you. Michael returned to the desk, picking up the letter again. His hands shook slightly as he read Carlos's words one more time. You saved my life. You gave me a future. But that future had been cut short, and now Carlos's family was drowning. I need her address, Michael said. Marcus hesitated. MJ, I know what you're thinking, but... Her address, Marcus, please. Marcus pulled out another sheet. She lives at Parker Gardens Apartments, Unit 214. But Michael, you can't just show up at this woman's home. I'm not going to show up unannounced, Michael interrupted. I'm going to write her a letter, just like her husband wrote to me. He picked up the photocopy of Carlos's letter. "Can I keep this?" "Of course." Michael stood, the folder tucked under his arm. His mind was already composing what he wanted to say to Alina, how to explain that this wasn't charity or pity but something else entirely, a circle completing itself, a debt being paid to a man who could never know it was being paid. "Thank you, Marcus," Michael said at the door. "MJ," Marcus called after him. "That letter from Carlos, the original, is in our archives. I can have it pulled if you want to see it." "Yes," Michael said immediately. "I want to hold the actual letter he wrote. Can you send it to my house?" "I'll have it couriered over today." As Michael drove home, his mind was a storm of emotions. Guilt, for not seeing Carlos's letter 3 years ago, for not responding personally. Sadness, for a good man whose life had been cut short, whose family now suffered. And something else, something that felt almost like awe at how the universe worked, at how one day 20 years ago had rippled forward to create a life, a family, a story that had now circled back to him. He thought about Alina's tears, about her words. "You don't understand what you've just done." She was right. He hadn't understood, but now he was beginning to. Carlos Martinez had died 8 months ago, wearing Michael Jordan's jersey like armor that ultimately couldn't protect him. And now Michael Jordan had appeared in a grocery store at the exact moment Carlos's wife needed help most. Coincidence? Michael didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Michael sat at his desk that evening, a blank sheet of his personal stationery in front of him. The original letter from Carlos had arrived an hour ago, delivered by courier in a protective sleeve. Michael had held it carefully, running his fingers over the creases in the paper, the slight smudges where Carlos's hand had rested while writing. This wasn't a photocopy. This was the actual letter, the paper Carlos had touched, the words he'd carefully formed, the message he'd sent out into the world 3 years ago, hoping it would reach Michael. It had reached him, just 3 years too late. Now Michael needed to write back. But what did you say to a widow? How did you explain that you'd failed her husband, that his letter had been lost in bureaucracy, that you were only now discovering a connection that should have been honored years ago? Michael picked up his pen, then set it down, picked it up again. The words wouldn't come. Yvette appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of tea in her hands. She set one beside Michael and settled into the chair across from his desk. "Still struggling?" she asked gently. "How do I tell her that I failed her husband?" Michael said, frustration thick in his voice. "That he reached out to me, trusted me with his story, and I never even saw his letter." "You didn't fail him, Michael. You never got the letter. That's not the same thing." "Isn't it? My foundation, my staff, my responsibility." Yvette sipped her tea, watching her husband wrestle with guilt that wasn't entirely his to carry. "What would Carlos want you to say to his wife right now?" Michael looked up at her, then back down at Carlos's letter. He read it again, this time looking for the man behind the words. What kind of person writes a letter asking for nothing, simply wanting to say thank you? What kind of person credits a stranger with saving not just his life, but his entire future? A good person, a grateful person, a person who understood that kindness matters. "He'd want me to help his family," Michael said quietly. "That's what he'd want." "Then tell her that. Tell her you're sorry you never responded before, but you're here now. Tell her that her husband's words mattered, that his life mattered, that his family matters." Michael nodded slowly. He picked up his pen again, and this time the words began to flow. "Dear Mrs. Martinez," he wrote, then stopped and crossed it out. Too formal. He started again. "Dear Alina, I hope this letter finds you and your children well. My name is Michael Jordan, though I think you already know that from our brief meeting at Save Mart earlier this week. I'm writing to you because I've recently learned something that has deeply affected me. 3 years ago, your husband Carlos sent me a letter. In it, he told me a story about a day 20 years ago when I visited a community center in Chicago. Carlos wrote that my words that day changed his life, pulled him back from a dangerous path, and gave him a future he wouldn't have had otherwise. I never saw that letter when it arrived. It was processed by my foundation staff and filed away, and a response I wrote never reached Carlos because of an address error. I've only just discovered it, and I cannot tell you how much I regret not reading his words when he sent them. Carlos wrote about meeting you, about building a life together, about the birth of your son Mateo. He wrote about how grateful he was for a second chance, and how he wanted me to know that my words had mattered more than I could know. Alina, I'm writing to tell you that Carlos's words matter too. They matter tremendously. Learning about his story, about his life, about the family he loved, it has reminded me why I try to help people, why any of us should try to help each other. I also recently learned about Carlos's passing, and I cannot express how sorry I am for your loss. I wish I had known him. I wish I had been able to thank him for trusting me with his story. I wish many things that cannot be changed, but I can do something now. Please understand that this is not charity and it is not pity. This is me honoring a good man who deserved better than the hand fate dealt him. This is me completing a conversation that should have happened 3 years ago. This is me asking you to let me help your family the way Carlos once let me help him, by accepting a hand extended in genuine care. I know about Sophia's medical condition, and I know about the bills you're facing. I know you're working multiple jobs and barely staying afloat. I know because I asked my foundation to find out if you were okay after I saw you at the grocery store. I hope that doesn't feel like an invasion of your privacy. I was genuinely worried about you and your children. My mother raised 5 children, and there were times when money was so tight I could see the worry in her eyes. I remember what it feels like to watch a parent struggle, to feel helpless as a child. I don't want Mateo and Sophia to carry that weight. Children should feel secure, should feel loved, should feel like the world has room for their dreams. I'm including my personal phone number at the bottom of this letter. If you're willing, I would like to talk with you about how I can help. Not just with immediate needs, but with building a stable future for your family, the kind of future Carlos wanted for you. There is no pressure, no obligation. If you prefer not to accept help, I will respect that completely. But please know that Carlos's letter has stayed with me since I read it 2 days ago. His words, his gratitude, his love for his family, it touched something deep in me. Helping you would be helping him, helping the man who once let a stranger's words change his life. Your husband wrote that I gave him a future. Now I'd like to help secure the future he wanted for you and your children. Not because I'm Michael Jordan, the basketball player, but because I'm a human being who was moved by another human being's story, and because Carlos trusted me once. I'd like to be worthy of that trust now. Please call me when you're ready. There's no rush. I'll wait to hear from you. With sincere respect and condolences, Michael Jordan. He wrote his personal cell phone number at the bottom, then read the letter 3 times, changing a word here and there, making sure the tone was right, respectful, honest, offering help without demanding anything in return. Finally satisfied, he folded the letter carefully and slid it into an envelope. But he didn't seal it yet. There was one more thing. Michael went to his closet and found a lockbox where he kept meaningful items, his father's watch, letters from his mother, small tokens from important moments in his life. He opened it and pulled out a photograph from 20 years ago, from that community center visit Carlos had written about. In the photo, Michael stood surrounded by dozens of teenagers, all smiling, all full of hope and potential. Somewhere in that crowd, invisible in the mass of faces, had been 15-year-old Carlos Martinez, carrying a knife and planning revenge, moments away from throwing his life away. Michael wrote on the back of the photo, "To Mateo and Sophia, your father was in this picture, though I didn't know it at the time. He was brave enough to choose a better path. I hope you'll be proud of him always. MJ." He slipped the photo into the envelope with the letter. Then he added something else, a check made out to Elena Martinez, for an amount that would cover 6 months of Sophia's medication, plus enough to give Elena breathing room, time to catch up on bills, time to grieve without drowning. Michael sealed the envelope and wrote Elena's address on the front. Tomorrow, he'd have it hand-delivered along with a care package, groceries, gift cards, practical items a struggling family might need. Yvette had been watching from the doorway. "You did good," she said softly. "I hope so," Michael replied. "I hope she doesn't think I'm overstepping." "She won't, how could she? You're honoring her husband's memory. You're offering help with dignity and respect. That's all anyone can ask." Michael set the letter on his desk, ready for tomorrow. He felt lighter somehow, like he'd released a weight he'd been carrying since Tuesday night. But he also felt nervous. What if Elena refused his help? What if his letter made things worse instead of better? What if she saw this as a rich man trying to buy his way out of guilt? "Stop overthinking," Yvette said, reading his face. "You've done what you can do. Now you wait and trust that things will work out the way they're supposed to." Michael nodded, but sleep didn't come easily that night either. He kept thinking about Carlos, about the letter, about Alina's tears in the grocery store. He kept wondering if Carlos had somehow known, somehow felt that Michael would eventually find his family, that the circle would complete itself even after death. It seemed impossible. But then again, the whole thing seemed impossible. That one conversation 20 years ago would save a life, create a family, and then bring that family back to Michael at their moment of greatest need. Impossible, but it had happened anyway. Michael finally fell asleep around 2 in the morning, Carlos's letter on his nightstand, a reminder that words matter, that actions ripple forward in ways we never see, that the universe has a way of connecting people who need to be connected. Tomorrow the letter would reach Alina, and tomorrow Michael would wait for her response, hoping she'd give him the chance to honor a man he'd met once briefly 20 years ago, a man whose life had mattered more than Michael had ever known. The next morning, Michael arranged for a delivery service he trusted, discreet, professional, reliable. Along with his letter, he included groceries, gift cards to local stores, and some toys for Mateo and Sofia. Nothing excessive, nothing that screamed rich celebrity, just thoughtful items that might ease a struggling family's burden. The package was delivered to Parker Gardens Apartments at 11 o'clock Saturday morning. Michael knew because he'd asked the driver to text him when it was done. After receiving the confirmation, he set his phone on his desk and tried to focus on other things. He lasted 15 minutes before picking up the phone again, checking to see if Alina had called. Nothing. She just got it, Yvette reminded him, watching her husband pace the study like a nervous teenager waiting for a prom date to call back. Give her time to process everything. Michael nodded, set the phone down again, and tried to read the newspaper. The words blurred together meaninglessly. An hour passed, then 2. Michael went to the gym in his house, tried to work out but couldn't focus. He kept thinking about Alina opening the package, reading his letter, seeing the check. Was she crying, angry, relieved, overwhelmed? By 3 o'clock, Michael had convinced himself she wasn't going to call. Maybe his letter had offended her. Maybe she thought he was trying to buy her silence or assuage his guilt. Maybe. His phone rang. Michael nearly dropped it in his rush to answer. The number was unfamiliar, local area code. Hello. His voice came out more anxious than he intended. There was silence on the other end, just breathing. Then quietly, Mr. Jordan, this is Alina Martinez. Michael sat down, his heart pounding. Alina, thank you for calling. I received your package, your letter. Her voice was shaky, emotional. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Michael said gently. I just wanted you to know about Carlos's letter and that He wrote to you, Alina interrupted, her voice breaking. He actually wrote to you. 3 years ago, yes, when Mateo was born. Alina made a sound, half laugh, half sob. He never told me. He talked about you all the time, about that day at the community center, about how you saved his life, but he never mentioned writing a letter. He probably didn't want to get your hopes up in case I didn't respond, Michael said quietly. And then I failed him. I never saw it until this week. No, Alina said firmly. Don't say that. You didn't fail anyone, Mr. Jordan. Carlos wouldn't want you to think that. He believed in signs, in fate, in things happening for a reason. Michael heard her take a shaky breath. Can I tell you something? Alina asked. Something that will probably sound crazy. Of course. After Carlos died, I kept having the same dream, over and over, 5 times in 2 weeks. In the dream, Carlos would appear to me and tell me to go to Save Mart on Tuesday evening. He'd say it was important, that I needed to be there. I thought I was just grieving, that my mind was playing tricks on me. Michael's skin prickled. When did you have the last dream? Monday night, the night before I saw you at the grocery store. Alina's voice dropped to a whisper. I almost didn't go. I had no money and I knew I couldn't afford groceries, but something pushed me to go anyway. I took what little cash I had and went, thinking maybe I could at least get milk and bread. And then you were there. Michael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of something he couldn't name. Alina, I need to tell you something too. I almost didn't go to that store that night. I usually shop somewhere else, somewhere less public. But something made me choose Save Mart instead. I still can't explain why. Silence hung between them, heavy with meaning. Carlos sent you, Alina finally said. He knew I'd need help and somehow he sent you. Michael wanted to rationalize it, to say it was just coincidence, just chance, but he found he couldn't. Too many pieces fit together too perfectly, the dreams, the uncharacteristic choice of stores, the timing, everything. Maybe he did, Michael said softly. Alina sniffled, clearly crying. Mr. Jordan, I need to tell you more. About Carlos, about what happened. There are things you need to know, things that make this all even more impossible. I'm listening, Michael said. Alina took a deep breath, gathering herself. After Carlos died, I couldn't go through his things. For months, I couldn't. It hurt too much. But 2 days after I saw you at the grocery store, I finally worked up the courage. I was sorting through his closet and I found a journal I'd never seen before. A journal? Yes, a leather notebook hidden in the back. Inside, Carlos had been writing letters, dozens of them, addressed to our children. Letters for their birthdays, their graduations, their weddings. Moments he knew he might miss. Michael's throat tightened. He knew he was dying. How did you? Alina stopped. Your foundation told you about his heart condition. Yes, I'm sorry. Don't be, I'm glad you know. Alina paused. The letters were beautiful. Carlos telling Mateo how to be a good man, telling Sofia how precious she was. Advice for their futures, memories from their childhoods. He'd been writing them for months, preparing for when he'd be gone. He sounds like he was an incredible father, Michael said. He is. Alina's voice broke again. But Mr. Jordan, there was one letter different from all the others. It was dated the day before he died and it was addressed to me. Michael waited, sensing this was important. In the letter, Carlos wrote about a dream he'd been having. A prophetic dream, he called it. He said he kept seeing me at a grocery store, overwhelmed and hopeless, unable to pay. And in the dream, Michael Jordan appeared to help me. Michael felt chills run down his spine. Carlos wrote that if I was reading the letter, it meant he was gone. And if the dream came true, if you actually helped me, then I'd know that even after death, he was still trying to take care of us. He wrote, if Michael Jordan helps you, it means someone is still watching over our family. It means the man who saved my life is still saving it, even now. Michael couldn't speak. His eyes had filled with tears. Alina continued, her voice thick with emotion. He told me not to be afraid to accept the help, that it was his way of providing for us from wherever he was. Mr. Jordan, when I saw you in that grocery store, it wasn't just shock or gratitude. It was recognition. My husband had predicted it. He told me it would happen. And when it did, when you appeared exactly like Carlos said you would, I knew he was still with us somehow. Alina, Michael managed, his voice rough. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to understand why I broke down the way I did. It wasn't about groceries or money. It was about my husband keeping his promise to watch over us. It was about his love reaching me from beyond death. You were the messenger, Mr. Jordan. You were Carlos's final gift to his family. Michael wiped his eyes, overwhelmed by the impossibility and the beauty of what Alina was describing. Carlos had predicted this moment, had seen it in dreams, had prepared his wife for it, had somehow orchestrated from beyond the grave a meeting between his widow and the man who'd saved his life 20 years earlier. There's more, Alina said, her voice stronger now. The journal had an envelope taped to the back. Inside was another letter Carlos wrote. This one was addressed to you. Michael sat up straighter, to me. Yes, he sealed it himself. I haven't read it. I felt it was meant only for your eyes. Carlos wrote on the envelope, for Michael Jordan if fate allows. Fate allowed, Michael whispered. It did, Alina agreed. Mr. Jordan, I know this is a lot to ask, but would you be willing to meet me? I want to give you Carlos's letter in person. I want to thank you properly. And I want you to meet my children, your godchildren in a way, since you're the reason they exist. Michael didn't hesitate. Yes, absolutely, when and where? Could you come to my apartment? Tomorrow afternoon. Mateo and Sofia will be with my mother until evening, so we could talk privately first. I'll be there. What time? 2 o'clock. I'll see you then, Alina. And Alina, thank you for trusting me with this story. Thank you for calling. Thank you for helping us, Alina said. Thank you for being the person Carlos always said you were. Someone who cared about more than basketball. Someone who understood that lives matter, that people matter. After they hung up, Michael sat motionless in his study, Carlos's 3-year-old letter on the desk in front of him, his mind spinning with everything Alina had told him. Carlos had dreamed about this moment, had predicted it, had prepared his wife for it, and somehow, impossibly, the dream had come true. Michael thought about all the choices that had led to Tuesday night. His decision to shop at Save Mart instead of his usual store, Alina's decision to go despite having no money, the exact timing that put them in the same checkout lane at the same moment. How many tiny decisions, how many small pivots, had aligned perfectly to make that meeting happen, and had Carlos somehow influenced those decisions from wherever he was now? Michael had never been particularly religious, never been the type to believe in ghosts or supernatural intervention, but this tested the boundaries of coincidence. This felt like something more. Yvette appeared in the doorway. That was her, wasn't it? Michael nodded. She had a lot to tell me. Carlos predicted everything, Yvette. He dreamed about me helping Alina in a grocery store before he died. He wrote her a letter telling her it would happen. And then it did. Yvette came and sat beside her husband, taking his hand. That's extraordinary. It's impossible, but it happened anyway. So what now? Now I meet with her tomorrow. She has another letter from Carlos, one written to me, sealed. She's going to give it to me in person. Are you nervous about what it might say? Michael thought about that. No, not nervous, more like humbled. This man trusted me twice, once when he was alive, once when he was preparing to die. Both times I was supposed to receive his words and didn't. Tomorrow I finally will. Third time's the charm, Yvette said softly. I hope so, Michael replied. I really hope so. Sunday afternoon arrived with brilliant sunshine, the kind of perfect fall day that made Charlotte feel alive with possibility. Michael dressed simply jeans, a button-down shirt, a light jacket. He didn't want to overwhelm Alina or make this feel like some official visit from a celebrity. This was personal, intimate, a meeting between two people connected by a man neither could speak to anymore. Parker Gardens Apartments was a tired-looking complex on the east side of the city. The buildings needed paint, the parking lot had more potholes than pavement, and the playground equipment looked like it had seen better decades. But the grounds were clean, and children's chalk drawings decorated the sidewalks, signs that families lived here, that people made homes even in humble places. Michael found Unit 214 on the second floor. He stood outside the door for a moment, gathering himself, then knocked gently. Alina answered almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting right by the door. She looked different than she had in the grocery store, calmer, more composed, though her eyes were still red-rimmed from recent tears. She wore simple clothes, jeans, and a sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Mr. Jordan," she said, stepping back to let him enter. "Thank you for coming." "Please call me Michael," he said, entering the small apartment. The space was modest but immaculately clean. Family photos covered every available surface, Carlos and Alina on their wedding day, both glowing with happiness. Carlos holding newborn Mateo, the whole family at a park, laughing, Carlos in his Bulls jersey, grinning at the camera. In every picture, his eyes held kindness and warmth. "That was him," Alina said, noticing Michael's gaze. "That was my Carlos." "He had a good face," Michael said. "You can see the goodness in his eyes." Alina smiled sadly. "He was the best man I ever knew. Not perfect, nobody is, but good. Genuinely, deeply good." She gestured to the small couch. "Please sit, can I get you anything? Coffee, water?" "I'm fine, thank you." They sat, and for a moment neither spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy with the weight of why they were there. Alina broke it first. "I've been thinking about what to say to you since yesterday. I've rehearsed it 100 times, but now that you're here, all those words feel inadequate." "You don't need perfect words," Michael said gently. "Just tell me what you need to tell me." Alina nodded, taking a breath. She reached for a leather journal on the coffee table, worn, well-loved, filled with pages that had been turned many times. "This is what I found in Carlos's closet, his letters to our children." She opened it carefully, reverently. "Would you like to see?" "Only if you're comfortable sharing." Alina turned to a page near the beginning. Michael leaned closer and read Carlos's neat handwriting. "To my son Mateo, for your 10th birthday." The letter talked about courage, about standing up for what's right even when it's hard, about choosing kindness over cruelty. It was beautiful, simple, the words of a father who understood what mattered. "He wrote dozens of these," Alina said, flipping through pages. "Every milestone he could think of. He was so thorough, so careful. He wanted to make sure our children would always have his guidance, even after he was gone." She turned to another section. "This one's for Sophia's wedding day. Listen to this. 'My precious daughter, today you marry someone who sees the light in you that I've always seen. Don't ever let that light dim. You are stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and more loved than you can imagine.'" Michael felt his throat tighten. He knew how to say what mattered. "He did." Alina closed the journal carefully. "But the letter he wrote to me, that was different. That was about you." She pulled out a folded piece of paper that had been tucked inside the journal's back cover. "This is what Carlos wrote the night before he died. I've read it probably 100 times since I found it." She handed it to Michael. The paper was soft from repeated folding and unfolding, and Michael could see the creases where Alina's tears had fallen. "Read it out loud," Alina said. "I want to hear his words in someone else's voice." Michael unfolded the letter carefully and began to read. "My dearest Alina, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're facing the world without me. I'm so sorry, me Amber. I wanted decades more with you. I wanted to watch our children grow, to grow old beside you, to keep my promise of forever. But life had other plans." Michael's voice caught slightly, but he continued. "I've been having the same dream for weeks now. In it, I see you at a grocery store, struggling, overwhelmed at your breaking point. And then I see him, Michael Jordan, the man who saved my life 20 years ago. He helps you. He appears exactly when you need him most. At first, I thought it was just anxiety about leaving you alone, my mind creating fantasies of rescue. But the dream kept coming, always the same, always so vivid. I started to believe it was something more, a message, a promise, a glimpse of how I could still protect my family after I'm gone." Alina was crying softly. Michael paused, giving her a moment, then continued. "If you're reading this and the dream has come true, then you'll know that even after I'm gone, I'm still trying to take care of you. If Michael Jordan helps you, it means someone is still watching over our family. It means the man who saved my life is still saving it, even now. Don't be afraid, me Amber. Accept the help. It's my way of providing for you from wherever I am." Michael stopped reading as emotion overwhelmed him. He looked at Alina, both of them crying now. "There's more," Alina whispered. Michael wiped his eyes and continued. "I've been carrying a secret, Alina. When Mateo was born, I wrote to Michael Jordan's foundation. I told them my story, about how he saved me from gang life, about how I named our son Mateo because it means gift from God, and meeting you and building this life was my gift. I never heard back, and I never told you because I didn't want you to think it was silly. But I wanted him to know that he saved more than just me. He saved our entire family that never would have existed." Michael set the letter down, his hands shaking. "He did write to me. 3 years ago, I never saw it, Alina. The letter got lost in processing. I failed him." "No," Alina said firmly, reaching across to take his hand. "Don't you see, this isn't about failure. This is about timing. Carlos's first letter didn't reach you when he sent it, but his second letter, the one I'm about to give you, it's reaching you exactly when it was meant to. Everything happens for a reason, Michael. Carlos believed that with his whole heart." She stood and walked to a small desk in the corner. From a drawer, she pulled out an envelope, sealed, slightly yellowed with age. On the front, in Carlos's handwriting, "For Michael Jordan, if fate allows." Alina brought it back and held it out to Michael. "Fate allowed. This is for you. Carlos sealed it himself the night before he died. Whatever's inside, he wanted you to have it." Michael took the envelope with trembling hands. It felt weightier than paper should feel, charged with significance. "Should I read it now?" he asked. "That's up to you. You can read it here or take it home, whatever feels right." Michael looked at the envelope, then at Alina's tear-stained face, then at the photos of Carlos surrounding them. He thought about the man who'd written these words, a man who'd faced death knowing he was leaving behind everything he loved, but who'd still taken time to write letters, to plan, to try to protect his family from beyond the grave. "I'll read it now," Michael said. If that's okay with you, I think Carlos would want us both to be here for this. Alina nodded, sitting back down beside him. Michael carefully opened the envelope, sliding out several pages covered in Carlos's handwriting. The paper was good quality, like Carlos had wanted these words to last. The date at the top read, August 14th, the day before Carlos died. Michael began to read silently, his eyes moving over words that reached across death to speak to him. And with each sentence, with each paragraph, his understanding of everything, of Carlos, of Alina, of their meeting at the grocery store, deepened and shifted into something that could only be described as miraculous. When he reached the end of the first page, Michael looked up at Alina, his face showing shock and wonder. "Did you know about this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alina shook her head. "I told you I haven't read it. What does it say?" Michael looked back down at the letter, reading aloud now. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and somehow, impossibly, you've met my Alina." He paused, looking at Alina. "It gets more incredible from here, much more." "Keep going," Alina said, leaning forward. "I need to know what my husband wanted to tell you." Michael took a breath and continued reading, his voice growing stronger as Carlos's words pulled them both deeper into a story neither of them had fully understood until this moment. Michael's voice filled the small apartment as he read Carlos's final letter aloud. "Dear Michael, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and somehow, impossibly, you've met my Alina. It means the dream I kept having wasn't just a dream. It was a promise, a glimpse of how I could still protect my family after I'm gone. I've never told anyone this, not even Alina, but I need you to know. You didn't just save me once. You saved me twice. The first time was at that community center 20 years ago. You pulled me back from a darkness I was ready to dive into. You taught me that pain doesn't have to become violence, that loss doesn't have to define you. The second time was 3 months ago." Michael paused, his voice catching. Alina leaned closer, her hand covering her mouth. "I was diagnosed with a heart condition, something genetic, something that's going to take me young," the doctors said. "Maybe a year, maybe 2, maybe just months." I didn't tell Alina because she was already worried about Sophia's respiratory problems, already working so hard to keep our family afloat. When I got the diagnosis, I thought about just giving up, about the unfairness of finally having a beautiful life only to lose it so young. I was angry at God, at fate, at everything. Why give me this family, this love, only to rip it away? Why let me know true happiness just to show me I can't keep it? Michael's hands trembled as he continued. Then I went to my closet and I pulled out my Bulls jersey, the one I was wearing the day my life changed. I remembered that day at the community center, remembered your words about being bigger than your circumstances, about legacy and purpose. And I realized that my time isn't about me, it's about what I leave behind. So I started this journal for my children. I worked extra hours to save money for their future. I made plans to ensure Alina would be okay. And I had faith that somehow, even after I'm gone, they'd be taken care of. If you're reading this, it means my faith was justified. It means you saved me again, not just me, but my wife and children too." Alina was sobbing now, understanding for the first time that her husband had known he was dying, had carried that burden alone to protect her, had spent his final months preparing for a future he wouldn't see. Michael continued, his own voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you for a life I got to live, for a family I got to love, for a death I'll face with peace instead of anger. You gave me that. Please don't feel burdened by this. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that one conversation 20 years ago rippled forward in ways you never could have imagined. My children exist because of that day. Alina's smile exists because of that day. Every good thing in my life traces back to the moment you told an angry kid that life is worth fighting for. If you've helped my family, please don't see it as charity. See it as completing a circle, one good deed rippling forward and returning to its source." Michael had to pause again, wiping his eyes. The weight of Carlos's words, the grace and gratitude in them, was almost too much to bear. "There's more," he said to Alina, who nodded through her tears. "I want to tell you something about the day we met, the day you saved me. You probably don't remember it clearly. You spoke to maybe 50 kids that day, and I was just one face in the crowd. But I remember every word you said. You talked about your father's murder. You said that when he died, you had a choice: become bitter and angry or honor his memory by being better than the violence that took him. You said revenge is easy, but growth is hard. You said that the people who hurt us don't deserve to control our futures. Those words hit me like lightning, Michael. My brother had just been killed in gang violence 2 months earlier. I was 15, angry and stupid. I was carrying his knife in my pocket, planning to find the people responsible and make them pay. I thought that's what being a man meant: getting even, showing strength, never backing down. But you showed me something different. You showed me that real strength is choosing life over death, creation over destruction, future over past. You showed me that I could honor my brother by living well, not by dying the same way he did. Michael looked at Alina. I remember that day now, vaguely. There was a kid in the back. He looked so angry, so lost. I remember thinking I needed to reach him specifically. That was Carlos, Alina whispered. That was my husband. Michael returned to the letter. After you left that day, I stood in the community center for an hour just thinking. Then I went home and I took my brother's knife and I buried it in our backyard. I made myself a promise. I would live the life my brother didn't get to live. I would be the man he could have been. That promise led me to finish school, led me to learn construction, led me to work hard and stay clean and build something real. And that promise led me to Alina. I met her 5 years after that day at the community center. She was waitressing at a diner, putting herself through nursing school. I came in every morning for coffee just to see her smile. It took me 3 months to work up the courage to ask her out. On our first date, I told her about my brother, about the day I almost threw my life away, about the man who talked me back from the edge. I told her about you, Michael. And you know what she said? She said, "Then I owe Michael Jordan a debt I can never repay, because without him, I wouldn't have met you." We got married 2 years later. Mateo came 3 years after that. Sophia 2 years ago. Every day of my marriage, every moment with my children, every good thing I've built, it all traces back to you. So yes, you saved me twice. Once when I was 15 and stupid, and again when I was 35 and scared, when your memory reminded me that life is about legacy, about what we leave behind, about being bigger than our circumstances. Michael set down the page, overcome. Alina reached out and squeezed his hand, both of them lost in the enormity of what Carlos had written. After a moment, Michael picked up the final page. "If you've met Alina, if you've helped her, then you've given me the greatest gift, the knowledge that my family will be okay. But I have one request, one thing I need you to do if you're willing. Tell Mateo about me. Tell him his father was brave. Tell him that Michael Jordan taught me how to be a man and I tried to pass that lesson on to him. Tell him that choosing life over revenge, hope over anger, creation over destruction, that's what real courage looks like. Tell Sophia that her daddy loved her more than basketball, more than anything, and that even though I can't be there to protect her, I made sure someone who understands about overcoming odds would watch over her. And tell Alina, my beautiful, strong Alina, that loving her was the easiest thing I ever did and the best. Tell her I'm not really gone. Tell her I'll be in every good thing that happens to our family, in every moment of joy, in every act of kindness. Tell her that when you appeared in that grocery store, that was me keeping my promise to always provide for her. I believe in signs, Michael. I believe the universe connects people who need to be connected. I believe my dream about you helping Alina was real, was prophetic, was a gift showing me that death isn't the end of love or protection. Thank you for giving me a life worth living. Thank you for teaching an angry kid that there's a better way. Thank you for being the kind of person worth admiring, worth emulating, worth trusting with my family's future. If we meet in whatever comes next, the first drink is on me. Until then, please watch over them. Not because you have to, but because I know that's the kind of man you are, the kind who shows up when people need him most. With gratitude beyond measure, Carlos Martinez. P.S. Tell Mateo about me. Tell him his father was brave. Tell him that Michael Jordan taught me how to be a man, and I tried to pass that lesson on to him. Michael finished reading and carefully set the letter down. The silence in the apartment was profound, broken only by the sound of Alina crying and the distant noise of children playing outside. "He knew," Alina finally said. "He knew you'd come. He believed it so completely that he wrote you a letter knowing somehow you'd read it." And he was right, Michael said, his voice full of wonder. Everything he predicted came true. The dream, the meeting, all of it. Alina stood and walked to the window, looking out at nothing, processing everything. For 8 months, I've been so angry at God for taking him, for leaving us alone, for letting Sophia get sick while Carlos wasn't here to help. I felt abandoned by everyone, including God. She turned back to Michael, tears streaming down her face. But Carlos never abandoned us. He planned for this. He prepared for it. He even arranged for you to find us when we needed help most. How do you do that? How do you love someone so much that your love keeps working even after you die? Michael stood and walked to her. The same way you're doing it now, by putting your children first, by accepting help even when pride says no, by believing that the people we love never really leave us. Alina looked up at him. I can't repay you for this, for the groceries, for the money, for honoring Carlos's memory. I have nothing to give you. You've already given me something invaluable, Michael said. You've shown me that 20 years ago I did something that mattered. That one day, one conversation, one choice to show up and be honest with some kids, it saved a life. It created a family. Carlos gave me that gift, the gift of knowing my words mattered. They did matter. They changed everything. Michael picked up Carlos's letter again, holding it carefully. Can I keep this? It's yours, Alina said. Carlos wrote it for you. And the journal. Would you let me read more of his letters to your children? I'd like to know him better. Alina retrieved the journal and handed it to Michael. Take it. Read it all. Carlos would want you to know the man he became because of you. Michael held the journal like the treasure it was. When can I meet Mateo and Sophia? They'll be home in an hour. My mother is bringing them back. Would you stay? I'd be honored. They sat back down, and for the next hour they talked. Alina told Michael about her life with Carlos, their early struggles, their small triumphs, the way Carlos would wear his Bulls jersey on days when he needed courage. She told him about Carlos's final weeks, how he'd worked extra shifts despite being tired and sick, how he'd hidden his pain to protect his family. The day he died, Alina said quietly, he kissed me goodbye that morning like he always did. But he held on a little longer, looked at me a little more intensely. I think part of him knew, and he was wearing the jersey, his armor, his reminder that he'd survived before and would survive again. But this time the armor wasn't enough, Michael finished softly. No, but maybe it was never meant to be. Maybe Carlos's story was always supposed to end with him bringing us together. Maybe that was the point all along. The sound of small feet thundering up the stairs announced the children's arrival before Alina's mother even opened the door. Mateo burst in first, his face lighting up when he saw his mother. Then he stopped short, his eyes going wide as he recognized the man sitting on their couch. Mom, that's. Mateo couldn't finish the sentence. Sophia toddled in behind her brother, followed by Alina's mother, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and graying hair. She took one look at Michael Jordan sitting in her daughter's living room and nearly dropped the grocery bags she was carrying. Mijo, come here, Alina said, holding out her arms. Mateo rushed to her side, but his eyes never left Michael. Sophia, too young to understand who this stranger was, climbed onto her mother's lap and buried her face in Alina's shoulder, suddenly shy. Alina's mother, Carmen, set down the groceries and stared. Alina, what's going on? Mom, this is Michael Jordan. Michael, this is my mother, Carmen Rodriguez. Carmen's hand went to her chest. Dios mío, you're the man from the grocery store, the one who, she looked at her daughter. Alina, what is happening? It's a long story, Mama, a beautiful story. I'll tell you everything later. Alina turned to Mateo. Baby, do you remember me telling you about the man who helped Daddy when he was young? The man Daddy always talked about. Mateo nodded vigorously. Michael Jordan. Dad said he saved his life. That's right, and this is him. He's here because, Alina's voice caught, because Daddy wanted him to meet you. Michael knelt down so he was at eye level with Mateo. The boy was small for 7, with Carlos's dark hair and Alina's expressive eyes. He clutched his worn teddy bear, the same one from the grocery store, against his chest. Your dad wrote me letters, Michael said gently. He told me all about you. About how smart you are, how brave, how much he loved you. He did, Mateo's voice was small, hopeful. He did, and he asked me to tell you something important. He said to tell you that being brave doesn't mean never being scared. It means choosing to do the right thing even when you are scared. That's what he did when he was young, and that's what he wanted you to learn. Mateo's eyes filled with tears. I miss him so much. I know you do, buddy, and that's okay. Missing someone means they mattered. Your dad mattered a lot. Sophia peeked out from her mother's shoulder, her curiosity overcoming her shyness. Are you really a basketball player? She asked in her small voice. Michael smiled. I used to be. Now I'm just a guy who wants to help people. Like you helped my mommy at the store. Exactly like that. Sophia considered this, then held out her teddy bear. This is Mr. Fuzzy. He's brave too. Michael solemnly shook Mr. Fuzzy's paw. Nice to meet you, Mr. Fuzzy. Thank you for taking care of Sophia. The little girl giggled, and the sound filled the apartment with light. Carmen wiped her eyes, watching the scene unfold. Over the next hour, Michael stayed and talked with the family. He told Mateo stories about playing basketball, about working hard to achieve dreams, about never giving up. He played a simple hand game with Sophia that made her laugh. He assured Carmen that he was there to help, not to intrude, and that he considered it an honor to know Carlos's family. When it was time to leave, Mateo walked Michael to the door. Mr. Jordan, will we see you again? Michael looked down at the boy, this child who existed because of a conversation 20 years ago, this living proof that words and choices ripple forward in ways we never see. Yes, Michael said. I promise. In fact, I was thinking, do you play basketball? Mateo's face fell slightly. Not really, I'm not very good. That's okay. Neither was I when I first started. Would you like me to teach you sometime? The boy's face transformed with joy. Really, you'd do that? I'd love to, if your mom says it's okay. Alina, standing nearby, nodded through fresh tears. It's more than okay. As Michael drove home that evening, Carlos's journal and letter on the passenger seat beside him, he felt changed in a way he couldn't quite articulate. He'd met thousands of people over his career, helped countless families through his foundation, done more charity work than most people did in 10 lifetimes. But this felt different. This felt personal and profound, and like the closing of a circle that had been open for 20 years without him even knowing it. When he got home, Yvette took one look at his face and pulled him into a hug. How was it? Life-changing, Michael said simply. Carlos's letter. Yvette, he predicted everything. He knew I'd meet Alina. He prepared for it. He wrote me a letter explaining that I'd saved his life twice, once at that community center, and again when he was diagnosed with a terminal heart condition and needed to remember why life was worth living. They sat together on the couch and Michael told her everything, about the journal, about Carlos's final wishes, about meeting Mateo and Sophia, about the weight and wonder of discovering that one day of his life had meant so much to someone he barely remembered meeting. What are you going to do? Yvette asked. Everything I can, Michael said. I'm going to make sure those kids are okay, that Alina has the support she needs, that Carlos's sacrifice, all those extra hours he worked, all that planning he did wasn't in vain. Over the following weeks, Michael kept his promise. He set up a comprehensive medical fund for Sophia that would cover her treatments for the next 5 years. He paid off Alina's medical debt entirely. He established college funds for both children, not enormous amounts that would make them dependent or spoiled, but enough to give them real opportunities. But more than the money, he showed up. He took Mateo to a basketball court and taught him basic skills, not pushing him to be great, just letting him have fun and feel connected to his father's hero. He brought Sophia books and toys appropriate for her age. He checked in with Alina regularly, making sure she was coping, that the family was adjusting. Alina, with financial breathing room for the first time in months, was able to cut back to one job. She spent more time with her children, helped them process their grief, began to heal her own wounds. The constant panic that had defined her life since Carlos's death began to ease. One evening, about 6 weeks after their first meeting, Alina called Michael. I need to tell you something, she said. Something happened today. Is everything okay? Michael asked, concerned. More than okay. I was offered a position director of patient advocacy at Children's Hospital. It's a job that would help other families navigate what we went through with Sophia's illness. The pay is good, the hours are reasonable, and I'd be helping people. Michael, it's like the job was designed for me. That's wonderful, Alina. Congratulations. But here's the thing, I almost didn't apply. I saw the posting 2 weeks ago and thought I wasn't qualified enough, that I was just a housekeeper with no formal experience. But then I remembered something Carlos wrote in one of his letters to Sophia. He said, "When opportunity knocks, answer the door. Don't make opportunity break it down." Michael smiled. Sounds like Carlos was wise. He was, and he's still guiding us, still pushing us to be better. I got the job, Michael. I start next month. He'd be so proud of you. He'd be grateful to you, Alina corrected gently. Without your help, I'd still be working 2 jobs, barely surviving, too exhausted to even think about a better future. You gave me the space to breathe, to heal, to imagine something more. That's what Carlos wanted, for us to thrive, not just survive. 3 months after the grocery store encounter, Michael attended a small ceremony at Save Mart. With Alina's permission and input, he announced the creation of the Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund, a charitable initiative dedicated to helping families dealing with the unexpected loss of a primary breadwinner. The fund would provide financial support, job training, counseling services, and mentorship. It would help families like Alina's, good people hit by tragedy who needed a hand up, not a handout. Alina spoke at the ceremony, her voice steady and strong. She told Carlos's story, not all the private details, but enough to show who he'd been, what he'd valued, how he'd lived. "My husband believed in second chances," she said to the small crowd of media and supporters. "He got one 20 years ago when a stranger's words saved his life. He gave me a second chance 8 months ago when he prepared for his death by making sure we'd be taken care of. And now, through this fund, other families will get second chances too. Carlos's legacy isn't just our children. It's every family this fund helps, every life that's improved, every person who gets to keep going when everything seems hopeless." After the ceremony, a reporter approached Michael. "Mr. Jordan, you've donated millions over the years. What makes this fund different?" Michael thought about Carlos's letters, about Alina's tears in the grocery store, about Mateo's hopeful face and Sophia's laughter. He thought about how one conversation 20 years ago had created a ripple that was still expanding, still touching lives, still proving that words and actions matter more than we ever know. "This one's personal," he said simply. "This one's about keeping a promise to a man who trusted me with his story. And it's about remembering that we're all connected, that the kid you help today might be someone's father tomorrow, that the words you speak might save a life you'll never know about, that showing up matters even when you don't see the results." "Do you think Carlos Martinez somehow knew this would happen?" the reporter asked. "That you'd meet his family and start this fund?" Michael smiled. "I think Carlos understood something most of us forget, that love doesn't end at death, that faith and preparation can change outcomes, that sometimes the universe conspires to help people who need help." Did he know for certain? Maybe not. But he believed, and his belief made it real. That evening, Michael visited Alina's apartment one more time. She'd invited him for dinner, a simple meal, nothing fancy, just family and friends gathering around a table. Mateo had improved at basketball, though he'd never be a star. He didn't need to be. He just needed to feel connected to something bigger than himself, to know that people believed in him. Sophia's health had stabilized with proper, consistent medication. Her cough was rare now, and when it did come, it was manageable. She was in preschool, making friends, being a normal 4-year-old girl. Carmen had moved in with Alina to help with the children, and the small apartment felt full in a good way, crowded with love and laughter, and the sense that this family, though scarred, was healing. As they ate dinner together, Michael looked around the table and felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of rightness, of being exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was supposed to do. "I want to propose a toast," Alina said, raising her glass of water. "To Carlos, who loved us enough to plan for a future he wouldn't see. To Michael, who honored a promise he didn't know he'd made. And to second chances, may we always have the courage to accept them and the grace to pass them on." They clinked glasses and Michael felt the presence of Carlos in the room. Not literally, but spiritually, the way people we love stay with us through the values they taught, the love they showed, the choices they made. Later, as Michael prepared to leave, Mateo tugged on his sleeve. "Mr. Jordan, my dad really loved you, not because you were famous, but because you were kind. Mom told me that." Michael knelt down, looking into the boy's serious face. "Your dad was kind too, Mateo. That's why I'm here, because kindness deserves kindness. And your father's kindness, trusting me with his story, believing in me, passing on the lessons I taught him, that kindness changed my life just like I changed his." "So you saved each other?" Mateo asked. Michael smiled, feeling the truth of it. "Yes, we saved each other." 6 months had passed since that rainy Tuesday evening at Save Mart. Spring had arrived in Charlotte, painting the city in shades of pink and green as dogwood trees bloomed, and the world felt renewed. Michael stood at the edge of a basketball court in a renovated community center, the very same center where he'd spoken to troubled kids 20 years ago. The building had been updated, modernized, but the spirit remained the same. A place where young people could find hope, direction, and second chances. Today was special. The Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund was officially opening its first community resource center, housed in this very building. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. This was where Carlos's life had changed, and now it would be where other lives could change too. Alina stood beside Michael, looking at the dedication plaque they were about to unveil. She wore a professional dress, the kind she now wore to her job at the hospital, where she'd become an invaluable advocate for families navigating medical crises. Her eyes were clear, her shoulders straight. She looked like someone who'd walked through fire and emerged stronger. "He'd love this," she said softly, gesturing to the crowd gathering. "Carlos always said that community centers saved his life. Now this one will have his name on it." Mateo and Sofia sat in the front row with their grandmother. Mateo wore a small suit that made him look older than his 8 years. Sofia, now 5 and healthy, wore a pink dress and kept waving at her mother excitedly. The ceremony began with Marcus Thompson, Michael's foundation director, explaining the fund's mission. In 6 months, they'd already helped over 50 families, providing emergency financial assistance, job placement services, grief counseling, and educational support for children who'd lost parents. When it was Alina's turn to speak, she walked to the podium with confidence. She'd become comfortable with public speaking, telling Carlos's story at events and fundraisers, helping people understand that tragedy doesn't have to mean the end. 8 months ago, I was standing in a grocery store, unable to afford food for my children, Alina began. Her voice carried clearly across the crowd. "I was at the lowest point of my life. My husband had died suddenly. My daughter was sick. I was drowning in debt and despair. I felt completely alone." She paused, looking at Michael. And then someone showed up. Someone who didn't know me, who had no obligation to help, who simply saw another human being struggling and decided to act. That simple kindness, paying for groceries, started a chain of events that changed everything. Alina described discovering Carlos's letters, learning about the connection between her husband and Michael, understanding that even in death, Carlos had been trying to protect his family. "My husband believed that one good deed ripples forward forever," Alina said. 20 years ago, Michael Jordan spoke words that saved a teenager's life. That teenager became my husband, became a father, became a man who touched everyone he met with kindness and purpose. And now, through this fund, that original good deed continues to ripple, touching families, changing lives, proving that we're all connected in ways we can't always see. The crowd applauded. Alina unveiled the plaque, the Carlos Martinez Community Resource Center, where second chances begin. After the ceremony, people mingled, sharing stories and hope. Michael found himself talking to a young widow whose husband had died in a car accident 3 months earlier. The fund had helped her keep her apartment and stay in school to finish her nursing degree. "I don't know what I would have done without this help," she told Michael, tears in her eyes. "I felt like I was drowning. This gave me air to breathe." "That's what Carlos wanted," Michael said. "Air to breathe, space to heal, time to build something new." Throughout the afternoon, Michael watched Alina interact with other recipients of the fund. She'd become something of a mentor, showing others that survival was possible, that grief didn't have to be the end of the story. Later, when the crowd had thinned, Michael found himself alone in the community center's gym, the same gym where he'd spoken to Carlos all those years ago. He tried to remember that day clearly, but the details were fuzzy. There had been so many community visits, so many talks to at-risk youth, but one of those talks had saved a life. One of those moments had mattered in ways he'd never imagined. Mateo wandered in, still in his little suit, carrying a basketball that was almost too big for him. "Want to shoot some hoops?" the boy asked. Michael smiled. "Always." They played for a while, Michael giving gentle instruction, Mateo trying hard but still awkward and uncoordinated. The boy would never be a great player, but that wasn't the point. The point was the connection, the time together, the feeling that someone cared. "Mr. Jordan," Mateo said during a water break. "My mom told me something yesterday. She said that before my dad died, he wrote in his journal that if anything happened to him, he hoped you'd be like a godfather to me and Sophia. Did she tell you that?" Michael felt his throat tighten. "No, she didn't mention that." "Would you want to be?" Mateo asked, his voice small and hopeful. "I know you're really busy and important, but—" "I'd be honored," Michael interrupted gently. "Mateo, being your godfather would be one of the greatest honors of my life." The boy's face lit up. "Really? Really? Your dad was an amazing man, and you're going to be amazing too. I want to be part of that if you'll let me." Mateo launched himself at Michael, hugging him tightly. Michael held the boy, thinking about Carlos, about all the moments this man had missed and would miss, about how inadequate it felt to try to fill even a small part of that absence. But inadequate didn't mean not worth doing. It just meant doing it with humility, with respect for the man who'd come before, with acknowledgement that no one could replace Carlos. They could only honor him. Alina found them there, Mateo still clinging to Michael. She read the situation immediately, her eyes going soft. "He asked you," she said. Michael nodded. "And I said yes, if that's okay with you. It's what Carlos wanted. He wrote it in the journal. If Michael Jordan ever becomes part of our lives, I hope he'll watch over my children like family. You've already been doing that, Michael. This just makes it official." Over the following months, Michael became a regular presence in the children's lives. He attended Mateo's school events, took Sophia to father-daughter activities at her preschool, showed up for birthdays and holidays. Not as a replacement for Carlos, but as an additional source of support and love. He also stayed close to Alina, checking in regularly, offering advice when asked, simply being present. Their friendship had deepened into something genuine, two people connected by loss and hope, by the mysterious ways life brings people together exactly when they need each other. 1 year after the grocery store encounter, Alina invited Michael to visit Carlos's grave with the family. It was a small cemetery on the outskirts of Charlotte, peaceful and well-maintained. Carlos's headstone was simple. Carlos Martinez, beloved husband and father, his legacy lives on. Alina placed fresh flowers on the grave. Mateo and Sophia added their own flowers along with drawings they'd made. Sophia showed a stick figure family with an angel watching over them. Mateo showed a basketball court with 2 players, one wearing number 23, one wearing angel wings. Michael stood quietly, hands in his pockets, feeling the weight of gratitude and responsibility. "Thank you, Carlos," he said softly. "Thank you for trusting me with your story. Thank you for showing me that words matter, that one day can change everything, that we're all connected in ways we never fully understand. I promise I'll watch over them. I promise your sacrifice won't be forgotten." Alina took his hand and they stood there together, a widow, 2 fatherless children, and a man who'd been pulled into their orbit by forces he still didn't fully comprehend. "He knows," Alina said. "Wherever he is, Carlos knows you kept your promise." As they walked back to the car, Sophia ran ahead, laughing, chasing a butterfly. Mateo walked between his mother and Michael, holding both their hands. "Mom," the boy said, "do you think Dad is happy?" Alina looked down at her son, then at Michael, then at her daughter dancing through the grass. "Yes, baby, I think he's very happy. He's watching all of this, the fund helping people, our family healing, you and Sophia growing strong and loved. This is exactly what he wanted." "And he sent Mr. Jordan to help," Sophia called back, having heard the conversation. "He did," Alina agreed. "He absolutely did." Michael smiled, feeling the truth of it settle in his bones. Carlos had sent him, through dreams, through prophecy, through the mysterious workings of a universe that connects people across time and space, and even death. One conversation 20 years ago had saved a life. That saved life had created a family. That family's crisis had brought them all together. And now, countless other families were being helped because of that original moment, that first good deed rippling endlessly forward. Michael thought about all the times he'd wondered if his words mattered, if his charity made a real difference, if fame and success meant anything beyond personal achievement. Carlos had answered those questions definitively. Words mattered. Actions rippled. Every choice we make echoes forward in ways we never see. As they drove away from the cemetery, Mateo asked, "Mr. Jordan, will you tell me more stories about my dad?" "Every story I know," Michael promised. "And I'll tell you about how brave he was, how kind, how much he loved your mother and you and your sister. I'll make sure you never forget the kind of man your father was." "Thank you," Mateo said simply. In the rearview mirror, Michael caught Alina's eye. She mouthed two words, "Thank you." Michael nodded, understanding what she meant. "Thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying. Thank you for honoring Carlos. Thank you for being the person Carlos believed you were. Thank you for proving that his faith was justified, that his dreams were prophetic, that love continues beyond death, that promises can be kept even by strangers who become family." The car filled with chatter as the children talked about their week, their school, their friends. Normal life, ordinary moments, the precious everyday existence that Carlos had fought so hard to secure for them. And Michael realized that this right here, was what Carlos had really given him. Not just a story about impact or legacy, but a reminder of what matters. Showing up, being present, loving people through their hardest moments, proving that we're not alone in this world. Carlos Martinez had taught him that 20 years ago, though Michael hadn't known it at the time. And now, even in death, Carlos was still teaching, showing everyone who heard his story that one life, fully lived with purpose and love, creates ripples that never truly stop. 2 years had passed since that rainy Tuesday evening. The seasons had cycled twice, bringing change and growth to everyone touched by Carlos's story. Michael stood in the wings of a hotel ballroom, adjusting his tie. Tonight was the second annual Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund Gala, a fundraiser that had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Over 300 people filled the room, including business leaders, celebrities, and most importantly, families who'd been helped by the fund. Alina was the keynote speaker tonight. Michael had watched her transform over the past 2 years from a grieving widow barely holding on to a confident advocate who'd found purpose in her pain. She now directed the patient advocacy program at the hospital and served on the board of the fund, helping shape its direction and ensure it stayed true to Carlos's vision. "You ready?" Marcus appeared beside Michael, clipboard in hand. "We start in 5 minutes." "Ready," Michael confirmed, though he felt nervous in a way he rarely did anymore. Tonight wasn't about him. It was about Carlos, about the families they'd helped, about proving that good things could grow from tragedy. The lights dimmed. Marcus walked on stage to welcome everyone and explain the evening's program. Then he introduced a video, a compilation of stories from families the fund had assisted. Michael watched from backstage as faces filled the screen. A single father whose wife had died of cancer, now able to keep his 3 daughters in their home and in school. A young mother whose husband had been killed by a drunk driver, now completing her college degree while the fund covered childcare. An elderly woman raising her grandchildren after their parents died in a house fire, now receiving both financial support and counseling services. Each story was different, but the theme was the same. People at their breaking point, given space to breathe, time to heal, opportunity to rebuild. The video ended with Alina's face filling the screen. She'd recorded this message a week earlier, sitting in her living room with Mateo and Sofia beside her. 2 years ago, my husband died suddenly, video Alina said. He left behind 2 children, mountains of medical debt, and a wife who had no idea how to move forward. I was drowning. And then, in a grocery store on an ordinary Tuesday, someone reached down and pulled me out of the water. The video showed brief clips from the security footage that night, grainy images of Alina crying at the checkout, Michael stepping forward to help, the moment their lives intersected. That moment changed everything, Alina continued. Not just because someone paid for groceries, but because that simple act of kindness opened a door. It led to discovering my husband's letters, understanding the connection between him and Michael Jordan, and ultimately creating this fund that has now helped over 200 families. The screen showed photos of Carlos at his wedding, holding newborn Mateo, wearing his Bulls jersey, smiling at the camera with eyes full of life. My husband believed that we save each other. That's what he wrote in his final letter. He believed that one person's kindness ripples forward endlessly, touching lives we'll never see, creating change we'll never measure. This fund is proof he was right. The video ended to thunderous applause. Then Alina walked on stage live, present, ready to speak. She looked beautiful in a simple black dress, her hair styled elegantly, her posture confident. This was not the broken woman from the grocery store. This was someone who'd walked through fire and emerged transformed. "Good evening," Alina began, her voice steady and clear. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Every ticket purchased, every donation made, every moment of your time, it all matters. It all ripples forward." She spoke about the fund's accomplishments: 214 families assisted, over $2 million distributed, countless lives stabilized and hope restored. She spoke about the Community Resource Center bearing Carlos's name, now serving hundreds of young people annually. Then she paused, her expression softening. "But numbers don't tell the whole story. Let me introduce you to someone who does." A young man walked on stage, maybe 19 or 20, wearing a suit that looked borrowed but neat. He was tall, thin, with nervous energy and determined eyes. "This is David Chen," Alina said. "David, tell us your story." The young man approached the microphone hesitantly. Hi, I'm not good at public speaking, so forgive me if I mess this up." He took a breath. 3 years ago, my mom died of breast cancer. It was just me and her. My dad left when I was little. When she died, I was 16 and I had nowhere to go. I ended up in foster care, but I kept running away. I was angry, lost, heading down a really bad path. Michael listened intently, seeing echoes of young Carlos in this boy's story. "I was about to drop out of school and join a gang," David continued. "I figured nobody cared about me anyway, so why should I care about myself? Then a counselor told me about the Carlos Martinez Fund. They helped me get into a better foster home, paid for tutoring so I could catch up in school, got me into therapy to deal with my anger." His voice grew stronger. "Because of this fund, I graduated high school. I'm now in my second year of community college, studying to be a nurse. I want to help people the way I was helped. And I'm here tonight to say thank you to Mr. Jordan, to Mrs. Martinez, to everyone who supports this fund. You didn't just save my life. You gave me a reason to live it." The audience erupted in applause. David wiped his eyes, overwhelmed. Alina hugged him and Michael felt his own eyes sting with tears. This was it. This was why it all mattered. David Chen would never have met Carlos Martinez, would never know the chain of events that led to his rescue. But Carlos's belief in second chances had rippled forward and caught him anyway. After David left the stage, Alina looked out at the audience. That's what this is about. Not statistics or programs or tax deductions, though those matter too. This is about catching people when they fall. This is about being the hand that reaches down when someone is drowning. She paused, her voice thickening with emotion. "My husband wrote in his journal that he hoped his life would matter beyond his own existence. He hoped that the second chance he received would ripple forward to help others. Tonight, we're proving he was right." Alina gestured to the side of the stage. "And now, I'd like to introduce the man who started all of this, not by planning to, but simply by showing up and being kind. Michael Jordan." Michael walked on stage to massive applause. He hugged Alina, feeling the emotion of the moment, the weight of what they'd built together from tragedy and grace. "Thank you, Alina," he said into the microphone. "And thank you all for being here." He looked out at the crowd, a sea of faces, each with their own stories, their own struggles, their own capacity for kindness. 2 years ago, I helped a woman pay for groceries. That's all I thought I was doing, helping with groceries. I had no idea that woman's husband had written me a letter years earlier. I had no idea he'd predicted our meeting in his dreams. I had no idea that one conversation I'd had 20 years ago with a troubled teenager would lead to all of this. Michael gestured around the ballroom. But that's the point, isn't it? We never know. We never know which words will matter, which actions will ripple forward, which moments will change everything. All we can do is show up and be kind and trust that it matters. He thought about Carlos, about the letters, about the impossible timing of everything. Carlos Martinez taught me that. He taught me that one life, lived with purpose and love, creates waves that never stop. He taught me that we're all connected, that the teenager you help today might be someone's father tomorrow, that the grocery bill you pay might save a family you'll never fully understand. Michael's voice grew quieter, more personal. I've won championships. I've broken records. I've achieved things most people only dream about. But nothing, and I mean nothing, has been more meaningful than discovering that one day, one conversation, one choice to be honest with some kids actually saved a life and created a family. He looked at Alina, standing in the wings with tears streaming down her face. Carlos trusted me with his story. And now, through this fund, we're trusting others with their own second chances. We're catching people when they fall. We're proving that we don't have to be alone in our struggles. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. So tonight I'm asking you to do two things. First, support this fund. Give what you can. Every dollar matters because every family matters. And second, this is more important, go out into the world and be kind. Pay for someone's groceries. Listen to someone's story. Show up when people need help. Because you never know which act of kindness will ripple forward forever. Michael paused, emotion overwhelming him. Carlos Martinez is gone, but his legacy lives on in every family we help, in every life we change, in every person who gets a second chance. That's immortality. That's what it means to matter. And that's what all of us can do if we simply choose to care. The applause was deafening. People stood, wiping tears, moved by the weight of truth in Michael's words. The gala raised over $800,000 that night, far exceeding their goal. But more importantly, it connected people who'd been helped with people who wanted to help, creating a community bound by shared experience and purpose. After the event, Michael, Alina, and the children went to a quiet diner, their tradition after big events. No cameras, no speeches, just family sharing a meal. Mateo, now 9 years old, had grown taller and more confident. He still wasn't a great basketball player, but he'd found his passion in art, drawing elaborate pictures that showed wisdom beyond his years. Tonight he sketched on a napkin while they waited for food, a portrait of his father from memory and photographs. Sophia, now 6, chattered about her first grade class, about her friends, about the science project she was working on. Her health remained stable, her medication routine established, her childhood largely normal and happy. "Mr. Jordan," Sophia said suddenly, looking up from her chocolate milk. "My teacher asked me to bring someone special for career day. Would you come?" Michael smiled. "When is it?" "Next Thursday." "I'll be there." Alina watched this interaction with quiet gratitude. Over 2 years, Michael had become genuinely woven into their lives, not as an obligation or charity case, but as family. He showed up for school plays and soccer games, for birthday parties and sick days, for ordinary moments that made a life. "How does it feel?" Alina asked him, "seeing the fund grow like this?" Michael considered the question. "Humbling, overwhelming, right. It feels right, like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Basketball made me famous, but this," he gestured at the children, at Alina, encompassing everything the fund represented, "this makes me useful." "You were always useful," Alina said. 20 years ago, you were useful to a troubled kid who needed hope. You just didn't know it." "That's what haunts me sometimes," Michael admitted. "How many other Carlos Martinezes were there? How many lives did I touch without knowing? How many moments mattered that I forgot immediately?" "All of them," Alina said simply. "Every single one. That's what Carlos taught us, that we never see the full impact of our actions. We just have to trust that being kind, showing up, caring about people, it all matters even when we can't measure it." Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Mateo showed Michael his napkin drawing, and Michael praised the detail and emotion captured in the simple sketch. Sophia told a long, rambling story about her friend's pet hamster that had everyone laughing. These were the moments Carlos had wanted for his family, normal, happy, safe. The moments he'd worked extra hours to secure, that he'd planned for in his journal, that he'd dreamed about in his prophetic visions. And somehow, impossibly, his planning had worked. His family was thriving. After dinner, as Michael drove them home, Matteo asked a question from the backseat. "Do you think my dad knows about the fund and all the people we've helped?" Michael glanced at Alina, who nodded for him to answer. "I think he knows," Michael said carefully. "I don't know how the universe works, what happens after we die, where consciousness goes. But I know your dad's love was too strong, too powerful, too intentional to just disappear. That love is still here, in you, in your sister, in your mother, in every family the fund helps. So yes, I think he knows, and I think he's proud." "I hope so," Matteo said quietly. "I want him to be proud of us." "He is, baby," Alina said, reaching back to squeeze her son's hand. "He absolutely is." When they arrived at the apartment, a nicer place now, in a better neighborhood courtesy of Alina's new job and the stability the fund had provided, Michael walked them to the door. "Thank you for tonight," Alina said. "For the speech, for being here, for everything." "Thank you for letting me be part of this," Michael replied. "For sharing Carlos's story, for trusting me with your family. It's been an honor." Alina hugged him, and Michael felt the depth of their bond, forged through loss and grace, through impossible coincidences and prophetic dreams, through the mysterious ways lives intertwine when they're meant to. "See you Thursday," Sophia called as they went inside. "Don't forget career day." "I won't forget," Michael promised. Driving home, Michael thought about the trajectory of the past 2 years. The fund had helped over 200 families, each with their own story of loss and recovery. The community center bore Carlos's name and served hundreds of young people annually. Alina had found purpose and healing through helping others. Matteo and Sophia were growing up secure and loved, knowing their father's legacy lived on. And Michael himself had changed. He'd always been charitable, always generous with his wealth and time. But this felt different, more personal, more meaningful, more connected to something beyond himself. Carlos Martinez had given him a gift, the gift of knowing that one conversation, one day, one choice to be honest and vulnerable with some kids had genuinely saved a life and created a family. How many people get to know that so definitively? How many acts of kindness come full circle so completely? When Michael arrived home, Yvette was waiting up, eager to hear about the gala. "It was beautiful," Michael told her. "They raised $800,000. David Chen spoke, the kid from foster care I told you about. There wasn't a dry eye in the room." Yvette smiled. Carlos would love knowing his story is helping so many people. "He would, and I think somehow he does know. I know that sounds crazy, but—" "It doesn't sound crazy," Yvette interrupted gently. "Not after everything that's happened. The dreams, the timing, the letters. It's all too perfect to be just coincidence. I believe Carlos is still watching over them, still orchestrating things from wherever he is." Michael nodded, grateful that his wife understood, that she believed in the mystery and wonder of it all. That night before bed, Michael read through Carlos's journal again, something he did periodically when he needed to remember what mattered. The letters to Matteo and Sophia were filled with wisdom and love, practical advice mixed with emotional truth. But it was Carlos's letter to Alina that Michael returned to most often, particularly the closing lines. "Love doesn't end at death, mi amor. It just changes form. My love for you will continue in every good thing that happens to our family, in every person who helps you, in every moment of joy you experience. When you see kindness, that's me. When you feel hope, that's me. When you know you're not alone, that's me, still keeping my promise to take care of you." Michael closed the journal and set it carefully on his nightstand. Tomorrow he'd return it to Alina. He'd borrowed it for the gala preparation. But tonight he wanted it close. Carlos Martinez had kept his promise. Through impossible means, through prophetic dreams, through letters and timing, and the mysterious workings of a universe that connects people who need connecting, Carlos had ensured his family would be okay. And Michael Jordan had been chosen as the instrument of that promise, not randomly, but specifically, because 20 years ago he'd shown up at a community center and spoken words that saved a life. The circle was complete. The promise was kept. And the ripples continued forward, touching lives neither Carlos nor Michael would ever fully know about. That was the miracle. Not the money or the fame or even the fund itself. but the simple truth that kindness matters, that words echo forward eternally, that we're all connected in ways we rarely see but can always trust. 5 years after the grocery store encounter, Matteo turned 12 and Sophia was 9. The seasons had continued their endless cycle, and with each passing year, Carlos's family had grown stronger, more rooted, more whole, not despite their loss, but in many ways because of how they'd chosen to honor it. Alina stood in the lobby of the newly expanded Carlos Martinez Community Resource Center, watching young people stream in for afternoon programs. The building had doubled in size, now offering job training, mental health services, educational support, and recreational activities. On the wall hung a massive photo of Carlos in his Bulls jersey, smiling at the camera with those kind eyes that had captured Alina's heart so many years ago. Beneath the photo, a plaque read, "Carlos Martinez believed in second chances. This center exists because he received one, and because he wanted everyone else to have one too." Mrs. Martinez, a teenage girl, approached, maybe 16, with nervous energy and hopeful eyes. "I just wanted to thank you. The fund helped my family when my dad died last year. We would have lost our apartment without it." Alina smiled warmly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Maria Gonzalez." "Maria, your family's strength helped your family. We just gave you some breathing room to find it." Alina had learned over the years that people needed to claim their own resilience, not attribute their survival entirely to external help. "What are you doing now?" "I'm a junior in high school, honor roll, and I volunteer here twice a week, helping other kids whose parents died. I want to give back what was given to me." Alina felt tears prick her eyes. She still cried easily when witnessing goodness, when seeing Carlos's legacy ripple forward through people he'd never met. "Your father would be so proud of you." "I think so too," Maria said. "And Mrs. Martinez, I read about your husband's story, about how Michael Jordan saved his life when he was young and then saved your family after he died. It's like a miracle." "It is a miracle," Alina agreed. "The everyday kind where people choose to show up for each other." After Maria left, Alina walked through the center, observing programs in action. In one room, single mothers attended a job skills workshop. In another, children who'd lost parents gathered for group therapy, learning they weren't alone, that grief was normal, that healing was possible. In the gym, teenagers played basketball, including several kids who might otherwise have been drawn into gangs, just like young Carlos had been. The Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund now operated in 3 cities, having expanded beyond Charlotte to reach more families. They'd helped over 800 families in 5 years, distributing more than $7 million in direct assistance and services. But more than the numbers, they'd created a community, people connected by loss who'd found purpose in helping others navigate similar darkness. Alina's phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Still good for Saturday, Matteo's game." She smiled and texted back, "Wouldn't miss it, 3 p.m. right?" Michael had remained constant in their lives, not hovering or intrusive but reliably present. He attended important events, checked in regularly, took the kids on occasional outings. He'd become exactly what Carlos had hoped for, a godfather figure, a mentor, a reminder that they were loved and supported. Saturday arrived bright and clear. Matteo's middle school basketball team was playing their championship game, a big deal for 12-year-olds, even if the stakes were objectively small. Michael sat with Alina and Sophia in the bleachers, watching Matteo warm up. The boy had grown, no longer tiny and awkward but lean and getting coordinated. He still wasn't a star player, would never be Michael Jordan, but he'd improved dramatically through hard work and Michael's patient coaching. "He's nervous," Alina observed, seeing the tension in her son's shoulders. "He'll be fine," Michael said. "He's prepared. He knows what to do." The game was close, hard-fought. Matteo played decent defense and made a few good passes, but with 30 seconds left and his team down by 2 points, he found himself with the ball at the 3-point line, wide open. The gym went silent. Matteo hesitated, clearly terrified. Then Michael saw the boy's eyes scan the crowd, find him, and something passed between them, not words but understanding. Matteo took the shot. The ball arced through the air, seeming to hang forever in that timeless space where hope and fear collide. Then it swished through the net, nothing but net, pure and clean. The gym erupted. Matteo's teammates mobbed him. The crowd went crazy, and Michael, Alina, and Sophia were on their feet screaming and hugging and celebrating. When the chaos settled and they found Matteo after the game, the boy was beaming, his trophy in hand, surrounded by teammates and friends. "Did you see it?" he asked Michael, breathless with excitement. "Did you see the shot?" "I saw it," Michael said, pulling him into a hug. "I saw everything. You were amazing. I was so scared I'd miss. But then I remembered what you always tell me. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I took it. And you made it. Your dad would be so proud, Matteo." The boy's smile faltered slightly, emotion mixing with his joy. "I wished he could have seen it. I wished he could have been here." Alina knelt beside her son. "Baby, he was here. He's always here. In your courage, in your hard work, in the way you believed in yourself enough to take that shot. That's your father. That's his legacy living in you." That evening, they all went to Carlos's grave, their tradition after important moments, bringing him into their celebrations even in death. Matteo placed his trophy at the base of the headstone. "I won this for you, Dad. Coach said I was the game MVP. I wish you could have seen it." Sophia added a drawing she'd made, a basketball going through a hoop with an angel watching from above. "This is you watching Matteo, Daddy. You're always watching us." Alina placed fresh flowers as she did every week. "We're okay, me Amber. Better than okay. We're thriving just like you wanted. The fund helped 3 more families this week. Matteo made the game-winning shot. Sophia got straight A's on her report card. Your mother is healthy. And Michael," she looked at him with deep gratitude, "Michael is still here, still keeping his promise to watch over us." Michael stood quietly, hands in his pockets, feeling the bittersweet ache of loving people connected to someone he'd never really known but felt profoundly connected to. "Thank you, Carlos," he said softly. "Thank you for trusting me with your story, with your family. Thank you for teaching me that one conversation can change everything, that words matter more than we know, that we're all responsible for each other. I hope I'm making you proud." A breeze rustled through the cemetery, gentle and warm despite the fall chill. Sophia laughed. "That's Daddy. He's saying yes, he's proud." Maybe it was just wind. Maybe it was imagination. Or maybe it was something more, the universe responding, Carlos's love still reaching across the barrier between life and death, still present in the ways that mattered most. As they walked back to the car, Matteo took Michael's hand on one side and his mother's on the other. Sophia skipped ahead, singing to herself, happy and secure. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't gone to that grocery store that night?" Matteo asked. "What if you'd chosen a different store?" Michael thought about that. "I think Carlos would have found another way. I think somehow we were meant to find each other. Maybe not that exact night in that exact way, but eventually. Some connections are inevitable." "Because you saved his life?" Matteo asked. "Because we saved each other," Michael corrected gently. "Your dad saved me by showing me that my words mattered, that one day of my life had value beyond anything I'd achieved in basketball. And I saved his family by honoring his memory, by keeping promises we made to each other without ever speaking them aloud. That's how it works. We save each other, over and over in ways big and small." Alina squeezed his hand. Carlos wrote in his journal that he hoped his life would matter beyond his own existence. Tonight, watching Matteo make that shot, seeing Sophia so happy and healthy, knowing 800 families have been helped because of his story, I know his life mattered. I know his death wasn't meaningless. "Nothing about Carlos was meaningless," Michael said. "His life created ripples that are still expanding, still touching people, still changing the world in small but significant ways." They reached the car. Before getting in, Matteo looked back at his father's grave, visible in the distance. "I love you, Dad," he called out, "and I'm going to keep making you proud." The words echoed across the cemetery, carrying weight and promise and the determination of a boy becoming a man, shaped by a father he barely remembered but would never forget. As they drove away, Michael thought about the journey that had brought them here, from that rainy Tuesday evening to this moment of celebration and connection. 5 years of showing up, of being present, of proving that Carlos's faith in human goodness was justified. The Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund would continue growing, helping more families, expanding to more cities. Matteo and Sophia would keep growing, carrying their father's values forward into their own lives. Alina would continue her advocacy work, being for others what she'd needed someone to be for her. And Michael would remain part of their story, not as a hero or savior, but as family, as someone who'd been pulled into their orbit by forces beyond understanding and had chosen to stay, to honor the connection, to prove that the bonds we form matter more than blood or obligation. That was the real miracle of Carlos Martinez's story. Not the prophetic dreams or the impossible timing or even the fund itself, but the simple truth it proved, that we're all connected, that kindness ripples forward forever, that one life fully lived with purpose and love can change countless other lives in ways we'll never fully measure. Carlos had believed that. He'd lived it. And now, 5 years after his death, 800 families and thousands of individuals were living proof that he'd been right. The ripples continued, spreading outward, touching shores he'd never see, changing lives in ways he'd never know. That was immortality. That was legacy. That was what it meant for a life to truly matter. And somewhere in heaven or consciousness or whatever exists beyond this world, Carlos Martinez was watching his family thrive, his dreams fulfilled, his promises kept through the hands and heart of a man he'd met only once but had trusted completely. The circle was complete. The promise was kept. And the story, Carlos's story, Alina's story, Michael's story, the story of everyone touched by the Carlos Martinez Second Chances Fund, continued forward, proving again and again that love doesn't end at death, that faith can move mountains, and that we save each other over and over in ways big and small, until the whole world is connected by invisible threads of grace and gratitude, and the simple choice to show up when people need us most. That was the grocery store miracle. Not the $47, not the celebrity encounter, but the revelation that we're all part of each other's stories, that we all matter more than we know, and that sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to show us exactly how much one moment of kindness can change everything. So now you know the incredible truth behind that rainy Tuesday evening, how one act of kindness completed a circle that started 20 years earlier, and how Carlos Martinez's love reached across death itself to protect his family. Before you go, I'm curious, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories of kindness travel around the world. If this story touched your heart like it touched mine, please hit that like button. It helps spread this message of kindness to more people who need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because every week we share true stories that prove kindness matters, that our actions ripple forward in ways we never see, and that we're all connected in beautiful, mysterious ways. Carlos believed we save each other. Let's prove he was right. Subscribe and be part of spreading kindness across the world. And if you want another incredible true story right now, click on the video appearing on your screen. You won't regret it. Thank you for watching. Now go out there and be someone's miracle today.